Welcome, everybody. I'm going to show you a storytelling form that's quite different from regular storytelling. It's called Kamishibai. It's done in Japan. It was originally done a long time ago after the silent movies closed, because in Japan, tellers would stand next to the screen during a silent movie and they would tell the story rather than having the captions come across the screen. They all lost their jobs between that and television. So they came up with this form of Kamishibai. There's street Kamishibai and there's educational Kamishibai. They're not that much different, but I want to show you how it's done tonight. So normally you'd be able to see the pictures and me at the same time, but due to the size of my camera, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. So I'm going to get the picture to fill the frame. I'm going to tell the story first, and then I will show you about the specific things that are different in Kamishibai. This is called The Moon Princess. Long ago, in the land of the rising sun, a woodcutter was out cutting bamboo, and he noticed that in one of the shafts of bamboo, there was a glow. It was glowing and pulsing. And so he went up to the shaft of bamboo and cut it open, and there was a baby inside that bamboo, a lovely baby girl. Now, he and his wife had wanted to have children for a very long time, and this was a gift to them. He took it back home. He took that child back home, and they lovingly took care of it. And over long periods of time, the child grew and grew and grew, not long like years, but like months. For 3 months, she grew from a small child to a full-grown woman. And her parents said to her, "Oh, you have to find yourself a husband now so that you can be happy." And they named her Kagayahime. Now, Kagayahime was a little bit obstinate, and she didn't particularly want to marry many different men, but there were 5 suitors in her village that absolutely told her that they wanted to try to have her hand in marriage. So they told her they would do anything they want. She set them around in a circle and said, "First person, you will find me the Buddha's bowl. Second person in gold, you will find me the beautiful golden tree with the pearls that are fruit. The man in green," she spoke to and said, "you will find me, yes, you will find me something beautiful. Let's see. I want the fire mouse's fur in a coat. The other 2," she said, "you will find me the jewels of the sea dragon. And for the final man," she said, "you will find me the magic shell." And so they were sent off to find those things for her. It took them nearly 3 years, almost 40 moons, until the first man in the purple came back. And he said, "Oh, Kagayahime, you see, I have found the Buddha's bowl. Isn't it beautiful?" Well, she turned it over in her hands and looked at it suspiciously. And she said, "You know, the Buddha's bowl is supposed to glow." The man had been found out, and he immediately left the room because he knew that he had lied. Second came the man who was told to find a beautiful golden tree with the pearls for fruit. And as he was showing it to Kagayahime with things shining all over the room and glistening, 2 men came to the window and said, "Sir, we made that golden tree for you, and you are to pay us this very minute." The man left immediately because he had tried to fool Kagayahime. Next came the man with the fire mouse's fur, which glowed and sparkled purple in her hands. She said, "This is beautiful. It will make a gorgeous coat. But you know, I've been told that the fire mouse's fur, well, it can resist fire. If you throw it in the fire, it will not burn." She threw it into the fire, and it immediately turned to whoosh, ashes. Her next suitor came, and he was going to find the dragon's pearls. He took a boat out to find those rainbow colored pearls, but nothing happened because the seas were so tremendously awful that he couldn't find it. Her final suitor in green said, "Men, go out and look for the magic seashell." And they looked all over for it, but none of the 200 could find it. Then he decided he'd go look for himself. He climbed a ladder into a tree, into a nest where he thought he saw the magic shell. But as he grasped it, he fell to the ground, only to open his palm to see bird droppings. None of the suitors had been successful. And Kaguya got more moody. She was sad. She would look at the moon constantly and cry. Her parents did not know what to do. She had no idea what she would do. You see, because she told her parents one day, "I have not been entirely honest with you. I am not from Earth. I come from the moon. And soon there will be people coming to retrieve me and take me back." The parents were incensed. They called the emperor and said, "Can you prevent this?" And he said, "Yes, I will bring 2,000 troops and surround your home so that they will not be able to take Kaguya to the moon. But don't you know, off in the distance, one night when it was a full moon, well, 3 moon sisters came down on a cloud, and as the soldiers aimed their arrows towards the 3 sisters, they were transfixed. They were frozen in place. They could not move." Kaguya was sad to go, but she told her parents, "I need to give you something because you have been so kind to me. So here is what we will do. I am going to give you the elixir of Fushi. It will give you eternal life." And she threw it to her 2 parents as she hopped onto the cloud and went back to the moon. They took the elixir and looked at one another and thought, "Do you really want to live forever?" And they decided that they did not, and neither did the emperor. So they took the elixir, climbed to the top of the tallest mountain in Japan, and poured it out. And it began to smoke. And to this day, if you see Mount Fuji under the full moon, you will see that smoke that was put there long ago. And that's the story of the Bamboo Princess. So now that you've seen me do it, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how it's done. Kamishibai storytelling, as I told you, was developed in Japan. It's actually very simple. First, the word Kamishibai means paper theater. That's the word it was given, and that's the word that's used till this day. They take a series of 12 to 16 cards and set them up as the frames in the story. You can't see completely, but on the corner is where I started in the story, and it moves across and you see all the different cards. They are shown to the audience. And they're done in successions. It's usually 12 to 16. The only reason it's 12 to 16 is the stock that they cut the cards out of divide into fours. And longer than 16, although there are some, it's kind of too long a story for children or folktale audiences. So they're generally 12 to 16 cards. On the front of the cards is the illustrations that you all saw. To learn the story, on the back of the cards is the text to the story. Each card has the text for what's called that scene. I did not do the text identically. I find it's much easier to learn the story and do it like a storyteller would do it. Once you take the first card, they have to be sorted in order or it doesn't work out, by the way. I've had that happen in the middle of the story. You don't want to do that. You sort your cards first. You position yourself. Normally the kids would see me as well as the cards. You pull the first card out once it's finished and place it behind the entire stack. So it's like shuffling a deck backwards, going left and then to the right. Some card, I didn't do that great. Some cards divide into two. They're called special effects cards. And you'll pull it to the middle of the frame and then pull it all the way. It tells two parts of the story. Those are rare, but they do happen. The card's pulled into the middle and blocks one part of the screen. And that's pretty much all I have, except you would like to know some resources if you want to try this. There are three great ones. The World Kamishibai Forum is on YouTube. You can look it up. They give free classes. They're recorded in how to do this form. Generally, tellers don't use pre-prepared cards. Most of them are artists, and they draw the story for themselves because some of them do original material or material that wouldn't be found on the cards. There are two manufacturers of the cards. One's called Story Card Theater, and they're in California. You can look them up on the internet. And the other is Kamishibai for Kids. That's in New York. Kamishibai for Kids has close to 20 card sets. They cost about $20 a piece. And Story Card Theater has 4 to 5. And that's the sum total of my workshop in Kamishibai. I hope you enjoyed it.
Rick, I have a question.
Sure.
How were you first introduced to this art form?
My wife had a dear friend of the family's that did this in Madison, Wisconsin. She'd been doing it for probably 40 years. I was sitting at a party one night and she told me about it. I didn't even know about it. But she said, you should look it up, and I did. So that's how I found out. It's not very, there are groups in the United States that do it mostly on the West Coast, San Francisco and Los Angeles, those folks, and they do make their own cards. So, any other questions?
Ron?
My question is that, are the stories confined to Japanese literature, or is
In the pre-printed cards, yes.
okay?
Because they're sold mostly in Japan. My cards, my big set of cards, they also come in different sizes, by the way, which is confusing because I have to have another frame. The ones that come from New York, the gal that sells them has to put the English translation over the other translation that's on the back of the card. The cards are in Japanese, and I can't read those. So, yes, they're predominantly Japanese folk tales. There are a few. I don't know if any of you saw the workshop that we did for the Story Center. The one I used in Jack and the Beanstalk, that's an English folk tale.
Okay, thank you.
Limited to your imagination.
Yes.
Yeah, basically, most of them draw their own cards and even tell original stories. So.